The diplomatic chamber aboard the massive space station fell silent. Admiral Kim of Earth stood tall and proud beside the slowly rotating holographic model of the ESS Thunderbolt. He watched with mild amusement as the 7 alien representatives of the Galactic Concord stared at the display, their expressions shifting from curiosity to shock to horror. Ambassador Lorne, a being with a crystalline body structure that caught and refracted the chamber's soft lighting, moved closer to the hologram. Their appendages trembled slightly as they gestured toward the ship model. "This is disturbing," Lorne said, voice crackling like thin ice breaking. "Your vessels appear to be designed primarily as weapons platforms." Admiral Kim crossed his arms across his chest, the dark blue of his uniform contrasting with the bright hologram. "Of course. They're warships." The 7 alien delegates exchanged troubled glances. Some made small gestures that Kim couldn't interpret. The tallest among them, a blue-skinned humanoid named Telka with eyes that seemed too large for their narrow face, stepped forward. In the Galactic Concord, an alliance of 37 spacefaring species, warships serve primarily as defensive shields with minimal offensive capabilities. Admiral Kim's eyebrows rose. He looked from Telka to the other representatives and back again. "I don't understand. How do you win battles?" "Win?" Telka blinked rapidly, head tilting to one side. "Galactic conflicts are ceremonial displays of technological superiority. They rarely result in destruction." The concept seemed so alien to Kim that for a moment he thought there must be some translation error. He glanced at Dr. Yoon, Earth's chief linguist, who gave a small nod indicating the translation was correct. "So your ships don't have weapons?" Kim asked. "They have defensive measures," another representative explained. This one resembled a large feathered serpent coiled on a floating platform, and minimal deterrence, enough to establish dominance displays. Kim pressed a button on his wrist device, and the hologram of the Thunderbolt rotated to show its weapon systems. The railguns along the spine glowed red in the display. The missile bays on the lower hull flashed blue. The energy cannons positioned at strategic points pulsed green. "This forward section houses our main railgun battery," Kim explained, pointing to the bow of the ship. "It can accelerate projectiles to approximately 15% of light speed. The impact force can shatter small moons." A collective gasp rose from the delegation. The missile bays carry 200 nuclear-tipped smart missiles with variable yield warheads, Kim continued, warming to his subject. "And the energy weapons can cut through standard shielding in approximately 3 seconds of sustained fire." Ambassador Lorne's crystalline body had taken on a pale yellow tint that Dr. Yoon had earlier explained indicated extreme distress. "Admiral Kim, you speak of these planet killers as if they were normal." "For us, they are," Kim replied. "Earth's history is filled with conflict. We learned long ago that the best defense is a strong offense." The delegate that resembled a ball of floating green gas expanded slightly. "You evolved as predators," it said, its voice coming from a translator device. "We suspected as much from your biological structure, but we did not anticipate this level of aggression in your technology." Admiral Kim studied their horrified expressions. The weapons systems that Earth considered standard, even outdated by their newest designs, were apparently shocking to these advanced species. The realization made him suddenly wary. Earth had only recently developed faster-than-light travel. If these species had been spacefaring for much longer but still maintained such a peaceful approach to conflict. "Admiral," Telka said, interrupting Kim's thoughts, "how many such vessels does Earth possess?" "The Thunderbolt is our flagship," Kim replied carefully. "It's one of 12 in its class. We have approximately 200 smaller vessels with comparable armaments." The delegation conferred quietly among themselves, using their own languages that the translation devices couldn't, or wouldn't, convert. Kim exchanged a glance with Dr. Yoon, who subtly shook her head. This wasn't going well. Finally, Ambassador Lorne stepped forward again. Their crystalline body had shifted to a deep blue color. "Admiral Kim, The Galactic Concord welcomes new species with open arms. But these vessels, Lorne gestured at the hologram. These human warships are too deadly for galactic warfare. They violate every principle of civilized space combat. We designed them to protect Earth, Kim replied. Yes, Telka said softly. The question is, Admiral, who will protect the galaxy from you? The words hung in the air between them, and for the first time, Admiral Kim realized that Earth's invitation to join the Galactic Concord might come with conditions he wasn't prepared to accept. He switched off the hologram, and the thunderbolt faded from view. But the tension in the room remained. The Concord central chamber was vast and beautiful. Smooth stone walls curved upward to form a high dome with soft lights that looked like stars. In the center stood a circular platform where Admiral Kim and Diplomat Park waited. Around them, rising in wide rings, sat the representatives of 37 alien species. Their voices filled the air with clicks, whistles, and sounds humans could barely hear. Admiral Kim stood straight in his formal uniform. Next to him, Diplomat Park wore the simple white clothes that marked Earth's diplomatic corps. They had been standing for nearly 2 hours as the Galactic Security Council discussed Earth's warships. We will now hear Earth's formal statement, announced Director Mev, the head of the council. Mev had 4 arms, gray skin, and eyes that changed color with their mood. Right now, those eyes glowed a cautious orange. Diplomat Park stepped forward. His voice was calm and steady. Thank you, Director Mev. Honored members of the council, I understand your concern about Earth's military vessels. To explain them, you must first understand us. Park paused, looking around the chamber. Humans evolved as territorial predators. Our history is marked by conflict. Our ships reflect lessons learned through millennia of warfare. A ripple of uncomfortable movement passed through the assembled aliens. Some shifted in their seats. Others made small sounds of distress. Predators? Asked a counselor with feathers instead of hair. Like the hunting beasts on our worlds. In some ways, yes, Park said. We have moved beyond our primitive instincts, but they shaped our approach to survival and security. Director Mev's eyes had darkened to a deep red. They leaned forward. You design vessels to destroy the enemy completely. Admiral Kim stepped forward to answer this question himself. If necessary, he said plainly, though surrender is preferred. The concept visibly disturbed the council. Most counselors looked shocked. A few seemed angry. One small being with skin like tree bark actually covered what might have been ears. Our records show that most council species evolved as herd animals or collective organisms, Park explained. You developed strong cooperation instincts and minimal aggression. Your conflicts are more like elaborate games than actual war. Because war, as you describe it, is barbaric, declared a counselor whose body was mostly tentacles, especially your concept of first strike capability. You build weapons to attack first, before any aggression is shown. It's pragmatic, countered Admiral Kim. On Earth, the ability to retaliate kept peace for centuries. When both sides know an attack will bring destruction, neither side attacks. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Director Mev had to raise all 4 arms to restore order. This concept is alien to us, Mev said. In Concord history, conflicts are resolved through displays of technology and skill. Ships might disable each other's systems, but destruction is rare. Deaths are even rarer. A counselor who looked almost human except for purple skin and 6 fingers on each hand stood up. When our species had its first space war, 3 pilots died. We still hold yearly remembrance ceremonies for this tragedy, 500 years later. Admiral Kim couldn't hide his surprise. In Earth's last major war, millions died. The chamber went completely silent. Millions? Repeated Director Mev, their voice barely a whisper. And this was, recently. Less than a century ago, Park said, before we developed our current understanding of balanced power. For the next 4 hours, the Council questioned the humans about Earth's history, military philosophy, and the specific capabilities of their ships. Some counselors seemed horrified, others fascinated. A few appeared to understand, though they didn't necessarily agree. Finally, Director Mev called for a vote. The counselors used small devices to register their opinions. When they finished, Mev's eyes had turned a solemn blue. "The Council has reached its decision," Mev announced. "Earth vessels are classified as Class X, prohibited weapons platforms. This is our highest restriction category, previously used only for planet-destroying devices and biological weapons." Admiral Kim started to protest, but Park put a hand on his arm. To join the Concorde, Mev continued, "Humans must redesign their fleet according to our protocols. You may maintain defensive capabilities, but must reduce offensive weapons by 80%. We will provide technical assistance for this transition." The council session ended. Admiral Kim and Diplomat Park walked slowly down the long corridor that led away from the chamber. Their footsteps echoed against the stone floors. "They think we're monsters," Kim said quietly. "They think we're dangerous," Park corrected. "And they're right." Kim shook his head. "What they don't understand is that the galaxy isn't as peaceful as their little corner of it. They've never faced a truly hostile species, have they?" Park considered this. The Concorde had existed for over 1,000 years, bringing species after species into its peaceful collective. They had developed amazing technologies for communication, transportation, and medicine. But their warships, as they called them, were little more than heavily shielded transport vessels with minimal defensive weapons. "No," Kim replied grimly. "And when they do, they'll need us." As if reading her thoughts, an alarm suddenly blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed along the corridor walls. Over the station's communication system, a voice called all counselors back to the emergency session. Park and Kim exchanged a look. They turned and walked quickly back toward the chamber, already knowing that humanity's role in the galaxy might be about to change. The emergency transmission illuminated the command center at Earth's orbital headquarters. The large screen showed scenes of destruction that made even the battle-hardened officers fall silent. Admiral Kim watched grimly as footage revealed sleek black ships cutting through Concorde vessels like knives through paper. "The attacks began 3 days ago," explained the Concorde representative on screen. Her name was Siri, and her usually blue skin had paled to a sickly gray. "They hit 3 border worlds simultaneously. No warnings, no demands, just destruction." "Casualties?" Admiral Kim asked. "Thousands dead, millions displaced." Siri's voice trembled. "Our defense fleet was completely destroyed in the first hour." Defense Minister Han leaned forward. "Do we know who they are?" "They call themselves the Hive," Siri replied. "At least that's what we've pieced together from intercepted communications. They appear to be a collective consciousness operating through drone bodies. Our attempts at communication have been ignored or met with more violence." The screen changed to show one of the Hive ships. It was black and angular, with no visible windows or markings, just smooth, dark surfaces that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "They're using energy weapons we've never seen before," Siri continued. "Our ship shields are useless against them." Admiral Kim exchanged looks with Minister Han. The Concorde had classified Earth's weapons as too deadly just 6 months ago. Now they were facing an enemy their ceremonial fleets couldn't handle. "Why come to us?" Kim asked directly. "The Concorde has 37 member species. Surely some must have military capabilities." Siri looked uncomfortable. "None like yours, Admiral. Most Concorde species evolved from herd or pack animals with strong cooperative instincts. Our conflicts have always been symbolic. The Hive doesn't play by those rules. And your council thought we were barbarians for building actual weapons," Minister Han said quietly. Siri didn't deny it. Instead, she revealed something more surprising. "Our intelligence division has discovered something interesting," she said. The Hive has been in our sector for nearly a year. They've attacked 17 worlds, but deliberately avoided human space. Admiral Kim raised an eyebrow. They've been watching us. We believe so, Siri confirmed. And unlike the Concorde, they recognized your military capabilities as a genuine threat. The command center fell silent as everyone processed this information. The aliens who had criticized human warships as too deadly now needed those very ships to save them. The Concorde Security Council has voted, Siri continued. We formally request Earth's military assistance against the Hive threat. 3 days later, Admiral Kim stood before the full Concorde Council on their central world. The atmosphere was tense. Many counselors couldn't even look at him, embarrassed by their quick reversal of position on human military technology. Director Mev, however, met Kim's gaze directly. Their eyes had turned a humble violet color. The situation has changed dramatically, Mev said. The Hive has now attacked 7 Concorde worlds. Our ceremonial fleets are ineffective in actual combat scenarios. You mean they're being slaughtered, Kim said bluntly. Mev's skin darkened slightly, but they nodded. Yes, we are facing an aggressive predator species for the first time in Concorde history. We need your help. Admiral Kim activated a holographic display. It showed the 12 Earth warships that had traveled with him to the Concorde homeworld. Each was highlighted with specifications and capabilities. Earth will assist, Kim said, but I need complete operational freedom. No restrictions on weapons or tactics. Several counselors shifted uncomfortably. The same ships they had classified as too deadly were now their only hope. Agreed, Mev said after a moment. What is your plan? Kim expanded the hologram to show a star map. We've analyzed the Hive attack patterns. They're methodical, following trade routes and targeting resource-rich worlds. We believe their next targets will be here, here, and here. He pointed to 3 star systems near the current conflict zone. Our warships will engage the Hive directly, Kim continued. But we need Concorde support vessels for evacuation and medical assistance. You want us to fight alongside you? Asked a counselor with feathered arms. No, Kim said plainly. Your ships aren't built for combat. We'll handle the fighting. You focus on saving lives. Another counselor, a being that resembled a tall insect, spoke up. How can 12 ships make a difference when our fleets of hundreds were destroyed? Admiral Kim smiled slightly. Because our ships were built for exactly this scenario. Real combat against a determined enemy. The command ship ESS Thunderbolt moved into position near the Proxima colony, the most likely target for the next Hive attack. Through the view screen, Admiral Kim could see the small Concorde support vessels taking position behind Earth's defensive line. Sensor contact, reported Lieutenant Song from her station. Multiple Hive vessels entering the system. Battle stations, Kim ordered. Weapons free. Remember, we're not here for a ceremonial display. We're here to win. As the black Hive ships appeared against the darkness of space, Admiral Kim felt a strange sense of vindication. The humans had built these 2 deadly warships because they understood a truth the peaceful Concorde had forgotten. Not every species in the galaxy wanted peace. All ships. Execute Operation Deterrent, Kim commanded. Show them why they were right to fear human space. The 12 Earth warships moved forward to meet the enemy, weapons powering up. Behind them, the Concorde observers watched in a mixture of horror and hope as humanity went to war to save a civilization that had called them barbarians. The Concorde observation vessel hung back at a safe distance, its sensors focused on the battle unfolding near Proxima Colony. On the observation deck, 20 high-ranking Concorde officials stood in stunned silence. None of them had ever seen actual combat before. What they witnessed now would change their understanding of warfare forever. Earth's 12 warships faced 37 Hive vessels. The black alien ships moved like a single organism, shifting and realigning as they approached. They had destroyed Concorde fleets 3 times this size without taking significant damage. They're going to be slaughtered, whispered Telka, the blue-skinned diplomat who had first classified human ships as too deadly. But then the Earth ships began to move. They didn't form the ceremonial lines that conquered vessels used. Instead, they split into small groups, executing complex maneuvers that seemed chaotic at first glance. "What are they doing?" asked one official. "Fighting to win," replied Director Mev quietly. The ESS Thunderbolt, commanded by Captain Lee, suddenly accelerated toward the center of the hive formation. Its engines burned bright blue as it reached speeds that would have torn apart Concorde vessels. The hive ships fired their black energy weapons, but the Thunderbolt rolled and twisted, avoiding most hits. The few that landed splashed against its shields without penetrating. "Impossible," someone gasped. "No ship can move like that." "Human ships can," Meb said. The Thunderbolt's main railgun fired. A streak of light shot across space and tore through a hive vessel, splitting it in half. Before the debris even began to scatter, the human ship fired again, destroying a second target. The other Earth vessels had engaged as well. They moved in what now appeared to be carefully coordinated patterns, creating crossfire zones that caught hive ships in multiple weapon arcs simultaneously. "Terrifying," whispered one Concorde official, a being with 6 eyes that were all wide with shock. "Magnificent," countered another, whose tentacles waved in what might have been excitement. On the main view screen, they watched as the Thunderbolt broke through the hive formation. Its point defense weapons fired in precise sequences, intercepting incoming hive projectiles. Its energy cannons cut through the hulls of enemy ships with surgical precision. 3 hive vessels disintegrated under the assault in less than a minute. "This isn't a battle," Telka said. "It's an execution." "No," Director Mev corrected. "This is what real warfare looks like. What we've been playing it for centuries wasn't war at all." The Concorde officials watched as the human ships systematically dismantled the hive fleet. Their tactics changed continuously, adapting to hive responses. When the hive tried to retreat, the human vessels cut off their escape routes. When they tried to concentrate fire, the Earth ships scattered only to regroup from unexpected angles. After just 20 minutes, only the hive command ship remained. It was massive, 3 times the size of the Thunderbolt. The human ships surrounded it, weapons locked on but not firing. "Why don't they destroy it?" an official asked. "They want prisoners," Mev realized. "They want intelligence." Indeed, the Thunderbolt had moved alongside the disabled hive vessel. The observation deck's communication system activated, allowing them to hear Captain Lee's transmission. "Hive vessel, this is Captain Lee of Earth Ship Thunderbolt. Your engines and weapons are disabled. Surrender your ship or we will be forced to destroy you." The response was unintelligible to the Concorde officials, a series of clicks and electronic pulses. "They're refusing," someone said. "Then why aren't the humans firing?" asked another. The answer came moments later when small craft launched from the Thunderbolt toward the hive ship. "They're boarding it," Mev said in disbelief. "They're going to capture it physically." For the next hour, the Concorde officials watched as human boarding teams fought their way through the hive vessel. Occasionally, their sensors picked up explosions or energy discharges. Finally, Captain Lee reported success. The hive command center was secure. The ship was captured. By the time the Concorde observation vessel docked at Proxima Colony Space Station, Earth medical teams had set up treatment areas for wounded hive drones. The insectoid creatures were being treated alongside injured humans. Director Mev found Admiral Kim overseeing operations from the station's command center. "You're helping them," Mev said, indicating the medical bay where hive drones were receiving treatment. "After they attacked our worlds and killed your people." "They're defeated enemies," Kim replied simply. "They're no longer a threat." "We thought humans were violent savages," Mev admitted. "We saw your weapons and assumed you used them without restraint or mercy. We built deadly ships because we understand that real threats exist," Kim explained. "But having the power to destroy doesn't mean you always use it." Mev's eyes had turned a thoughtful blue. "We misunderstood you. Your ships are deadly, yes, but your goal isn't death, it's protection. Admiral Kim nodded. On Earth, we learned this lesson painfully. Peace requires strength. Later that night, in an emergency session, the Concord Security Council voted unanimously to create a new classification for human vessels. Specialized defensive systems. Human pattern. No longer prohibited, Earth's warships were now recognized as necessary for galactic security. As the council meeting ended, Telka approached Admiral Kim. "I was wrong about your kind," the blue-skinned diplomat said. "I saw only the weapons, not the wisdom behind them." "An easy mistake," Kim replied. "Just be grateful you learned it from us, and not from the hive." Across the station, Captain Lee watched as his crew helped wounded Concord citizens evacuate to safer worlds. The same weapons the Concord had feared were now all that stood between them and extinction. The irony wasn't lost on him, but there would be time for reflection later. For now, there was a war to win. The silver towers of the Interspecies Defense Academy gleamed in the sunlight that reflected off the lunar surface. 2 years had passed since the end of the Hive War. Earth had formally joined the Galactic Concord 3 months ago, after lengthy negotiations that resulted in a special military status for humanity. Admiral Kim walked slowly through the main training hall where cadets from 23 different species practiced combat maneuvers. Some moved on 6 legs, others floated above the ground, and a few had bodies that constantly shifted form. Yet all wore the same silver and blue uniforms that marked them as the first class of the new Joint Defense Fleet. "Maintain formation," Kim called out as a group struggled to coordinate their movements. "Remember, in space combat, timing is everything." A tall, feathered cadet approached Kim and performed the human-style salute that had been adopted as standard protocol. "Admiral, may I ask a question?" the cadet said, blinking large yellow eyes. "Of course, Cadet Wren." "My people were artists and explorers before the Hive came," Wren said. "We never built weapons. Sometimes I wonder if we're losing something important by learning human warfare." Kim nodded thoughtfully. "My grandfather was a poet before he became a soldier. He told me that creating art and creating security both come from the same place: love for what we value. We don't train for war because we enjoy it. We train because we want to protect what matters." The cadet considered this, then nodded and returned to the formation. Across the solar system, in the massive space dock orbiting Mars, Captain Lee floated in zero gravity beside his ship. The ESS Thunderbolt had been refitted after the war. Its once plain hull now displayed the symbols of both Earth and the Galactic Concord. As the flagship of the Joint Defense Fleet, it carried crew members from 7 different species. Lee watched as Concord engineers studied the Thunderbolt's weapon systems. They still seemed uncomfortable around the massive railguns and missile arrays, but their fear had been replaced by grudging respect. "Still can't believe they classified these ships as too deadly when we first met," said Commander Jin, Lee's first officer, as she floated up beside him. "And now they're building their own versions," Lee replied, gesturing toward the nearby construction base, where new ships were taking shape. The new Concord vessels incorporated human weapon designs, but modified them with alien technology. Their hulls were stronger, their engines more efficient, and their targeting systems more precise than anything Earth had developed alone. "They're learning quickly," Jin commented. "Yes," Lee replied, watching a Concord vessel execute a perfect defensive maneuver in a nearby training zone. "And so are we." In the Concord Central Chamber, newly appointed Defense Counselor Park stood before the assembled representatives of 38 worlds. Earth was now the newest member of the alliance. The chamber had been rebuilt after a hive attack damaged it during the war, and the new design included elements from Earth architecture, less decorative, more functional. Humanity brought something valuable to the Concord, Park said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "Not just weapons, but perspective. We understand that the universe contains threats that cannot be reasoned with or impressed by ceremony." Many council members nodded in agreement. The war had changed them. Species that had never known real conflict had faced extinction. Their survival had come at a cost. Innocence exchanged for security. Director Mev, who had once classified human ships as prohibited weapons, now wore a military-style uniform inspired by Earth designs. The human phrase, "prepare for war to preserve peace," now guides our security policy, Mev said, rising to stand beside Park. 2 years ago, I considered such thinking barbaric. Now I understand its wisdom. Later that day, a group of human and alien officials gathered on an observation platform overlooking Earth. The blue planet turned slowly below them, clouds swirling over oceans and continents. "It's strange," said Telka, the blue-skinned diplomat who had first encountered human warships. "When we first met your species, we feared you would bring violence to the galaxy. Instead, you brought true peace." Admiral Kim raised an eyebrow. "How do you figure that?" "For 1,000 years, the Concord maintained what we called peace," Telka explained. "But it was fragile, dependent on all species being cooperative. One aggressive predator species nearly destroyed everything." "And now?" asked Park. "Now we have real peace," Telka said, "because now we can defend it." In the distance, a joint training exercise was underway. Human and alien ships moved in coordinated patterns, practicing maneuvers developed during the war. The sleek vessels gleamed in the sunlight, weapons visible but not firing. The galaxy had found an unexpected guardian in humanity, a species whose history of violence had forged them into protectors. What the Concord had initially feared as savagery, they now recognized as resolve. A small transport ship approached the observation platform, carrying diplomatic representatives from a newly discovered civilization on the galaxy's outer rim. They had requested membership in the Concord after witnessing the defeat of the Hive. "They say they want to join because we can protect them," Mev told Kim quietly. 2 years ago, we would have spoken to them about cultural exchange and shared knowledge. Now the first thing we discuss is defense." "Is that a bad thing?" Kim asked. Mev's eyes shifted to a thoughtful blue. "It's a necessary thing. Protection must come before prosperity." The once 2 deadly human warships had become the foundation of lasting peace, and the species that had evolved without aggression had learned that sometimes strength was the only language the universe understood. "To peace," Admiral Kim said, raising a cup in the Earth custom of a toast. "To strength," added Director Mev, raising their own cup. "They're the same thing," Park said quietly. "That's what we all had to learn." The end.